everyone. My name is Ronda Coallier, and I have the honor to spend the next 30 minutes or so with you. And our purpose here tonight is to assist you, the health practitioner, with information to help your patients and your businesses have even greater success. Just hold that vision. That's our mission. That's what we're about. And tonight we have the honor and the privilege to learn from the world's leading nutrition and performance scientist, Dr. Paul Arciero. And Dr. Paul, I just want to thank you for joining us for this life-saving conversation this evening. I'm going to go over a little bit of your background. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and we are going to download some amazing information. So Dr. Paul, his background is very extensive. I'll share some of it here. He earned advanced graduate degrees in both nutritional sciences and applied and exercise physiology. He holds advisory board positions of different organizations, including the Elite 15-member International Protein Board. That sounds amazing. And he is a fellow at the Obesity Society, the American College of Sports Medicine, and the International Society of Sports Nutrition. And on top of all of that, he has published over 60 peer-reviewed published scientific articles. That is absolutely incredible. And of course, that's just a small portion of your credentials, Dr. Paul. But before we dive into your groundbreaking findings tonight with nutrition and body optimization, I'm often asked sometimes, as I share your information in the world, is this research real? Or paid for, right? And I don't even I'm like, okay, what does that mean? But would you please speak for a moment, Dr. Paul, as you join us tonight and say hello to all these amazing souls? Just speak to the type of research that we're going to be talking about this evening, the research that you've conducted for us. And is this type of research being carried out by most nutritional companies? Let's start there.
Wow, thanks, Rhonda, for having me. First of all, that was wonderful. I'm actually at 70, over 70 now, peer-reviewed publications. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, this science is definitely real. I was on last night on a Zoom, and I presented, what makes Isagenix different in terms of the science. And there's a couple of things. Let me just start with that. So yeah, this is real science. When people talk about the bias that's introduced with scientists, depending upon the funding, that's really a moot point. And the reason I say that is because funding sources come from all over. They come from government funding, which I currently have right now. I have a National Institute of Health grant right now. It comes from philanthropic organizations. So these are either individuals or organizations that invest in scientific research or research in general. And then there's industry. And that would be what is classified, for example, with Isagenix, but it is, Abbott Nutrition and, some of these other really large multinational companies. So it comes from all different ways. And here's the simple to it. Scientists need to get their research conducted. They need to actually conduct these research studies in order to answer their questions that they have. And so the funding source really doesn't matter because there's so many checks and balances in the process of the scientific process in terms of the ethical standards. You have to get it approved by an institutional review board, which is made up of professionals from all different walks of life, believe it or not. They're not just scientists. And then it has to get passed through a human subjects committee. It has to have informed consent. And that's only to even just get the study launched. Not even in terms of after it's been conducted and the data has been collected. So I just want to start there because I think there's a misconception of people thinking, well, the study was funded by Isagenix, therefore it's biased, and the data really is influenced by Isagenix. Nothing is further from the truth. I'm a scientist at an independent university. I have been for over 30 years. The university wouldn't allow that. They would never allow a scientist to conduct unethical research or research that's been biased unethically or inappropriately. But not only would the university not allow it, the the organizations and the scientific journals would never allow research that has a heavy influence or bias to be published. And so I just want to, clear that up. This is not in-house research. I'm not doing the research at Isagenix in this case, but I have funding from all different sources: philanthropic, private industry, and multiple different sources of private industry, and then government funding. So I take money from wherever I can get it, as most scientists do, because we are so passionate and committed to living our passion. And that's, in this case, conducting research. So the funding source has so many checks and balances. So I'm glad you started there, because I think it's for healthcare practitioners to understand the full scope of what is required in order to not just conduct a study, never mind get the funding, but to conduct a study and then to actually publish it in the scientific journals in which it's scrutinized by leading experts from all over the world, blinded to the investigators. So they, for one, would never allow it to be published if they felt like there was a bias or an unethical approach that was taken. It wouldn't happen, especially in these very high impact scientific journals. Okay,
Wonderful.
so
Wonderful.
glad you started there.
That is so exciting. And do nutritional companies do studies this extensive usually?
Not necessarily. No, it's a big risk, right? And so most private industry funding, I shouldn't say that. There's a certain level of private industry funding, and even in some cases philanthropic, but much more so in the private sector, that they like to have their hand on the research, especially after the data has been collected. And what they call that in the scientific contract of the proposal, when it comes time to exchange the funds. And again, as a scientist, I never come close to touching the money, by the way, the funding. That all goes through the university administration. There's, entire research departments at major universities. I'm at one of the top 3 major research universities in the United States, if not the world, University of Pittsburgh. It's a world-leading research institution. It just got voted top 3 again. So we never come in contact with the money. It's not our money to disperse or to control. That's all done by the university administration. But that's a really good point, because most private industry, when they fund a project, they like to have something called in the contract first right of refusal. And what that means is when I collect the data, if it's not to their liking, they can squash it. They can say, you know what, I don't want it to be published. And some scientists adhere to that. I never have. In my 38 years of conducting scientific research, I've never wanted to associate with a company that would want to decide whether or not to publish the data based on how the data came out. That to me is unethical. And there are some scientists who do actually conduct research that way. They say, you know what, I just want the money to do the research, and if it doesn't come out the way you want, you can do whatever you want with it, meaning the funding agency. I say, no, if you're going to give me this money, I'm going to invest all this time and energy, and these study participants are going to invest all their time and energy. I'm sure as heck going to do what I want to do with it. And that's very unique and very rare. There's not a lot of companies that actually adhere to that. Isagenix is one that does. They do not submit a first right of refusal. They say, listen, in fact, that wasn't even on the table when it came time for the contract. And I actually brought it up. And this is a really good point. I'm glad you mentioned this. So when Isagenix first came to me, after the contract was written, I had this in my mind. I said, I've never dealt with a private industry company before that's never brought up the first right of refusal. So I brought it up to them. They actually responded and they said, oh, why would we want to have anything to do with, the outcome of the data? You're the scientist, you're the so-called expert. You do what you need to do with the data. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, this is a high quality, high ethical standard company, because they understood the scientific process. They said, listen, we're not the experts in science. That's you. Whatever happens with the data is what happens with the data, and you do what you have to do with it. So yeah, they've been an absolute joy to work with.
Fantastic. That's amazing. You know, that speaks volumes to the integrity of our company and our mission and your work. And thank you so much for clearing that up. You know, Dr. Paul, we currently have many doctors, you know, naturopathic doctors, GLP-1 clinics, medi spas, plastic surgery centers, regular spas, physical therapies, chiropractors, all of them. We have many of them all around the globe, really, that are loving incorporating our products into their offerings. And why, someone might ask, and I think, for me, what I've been, you know, seeing with them is that their patients are getting better results using these clinically proven products, which then gives their clinic a better reputation, you know, and also because if you're offering products, obviously you want to offer the very, very best. I saw a study earlier that said fewer than 1 out of 14 American adults have optimal heart and metabolic health, according to a recent July 2022 study published in the Journal of American College of Cardiology. And what that means is 13 out of 14 patients that a healthcare practitioner sees is in need of improvements in their health, right? We can help them. And that excites me. That's our mission. So I would love, I mean, Stephanie's here to help you have the screen share, but I would love to dive into your groundbreaking research and share this information with all of the health practitioners that we're going to be sharing this with. And let's talk about your world famous studies. I think you just won an award as the top 10% downloaded study. Share that and how we can help these practitioners serve their clients even better.
Awesome. All right, I'll go ahead and share.
Thank you.
Okay, can you all see that? All right, perfect. So that's me. My current position, as Rhonda said, is I'm a full professor. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's a ranking system at all universities across the world. You usually start at an assistant professor. In some cases, you actually even start somewhat lower than that. It's called a visiting assistant professor. And then you go through up the ranks based on your performance, and you become an associate professor. And then the final rung in terms of being a professor scientist at a university is a full professor. And so I'm fortunate that I've been a full professor now for over 20 years. And the fact that I'm at one of the leading research institutions in the world is you know, really a fantastic honor for me. I'm humbled for sure that I've been able to achieve this now at 2 different leading universities in the United States to achieve a full professor position. So I'm currently at the Sports Medicine and Nutrition Department at the University of Pittsburgh. So as Rhonda said, yeah, I base my career on my scientific peer-reviewed publications. So these are publications in leading journals. This one down here in the middle on the bottom rung is the one that Rhonda just referred to that has been awarded, which is not an easy achievement because there's lots of scientific papers that get published every year. We're talking, you know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. I mean, there's a lot of scientific research papers that get published every year. And this one that you see down here in the middle, and I'll share the data with you, was just awarded last week, one of the top 10% of all published papers in the leading journal, the Obesity Journal, which is the leading journal for the Obesity Society, which is a world society. It's not a local or just United States based. The Obesity Society is worldwide. So that's a huge honor. And guess what? It's with Isagenix research. So that's kind of cool. So I have created this paradigm of a healthy lifestyle called protein pacing and nutritional fasting. Protein pacing, I'm kind of whipping through these because I know some of you know this, but you'll have time to go back because this is recorded. So it's those 14 protein-paced meals per day every 4 hours, ranging from 25 to 50 grams. First one within an hour of waking, and the last one within 2 hours of going to bed at night. And I want to really emphasize this because there was a study that came out last week that kind of threw intermittent fasting under the bus. And so I'm actually a big supporter of the findings that came out of that study. I know there was some that were questioning the validity and credibility of the finding because they had the word intermittent fasting in there. But what happened was they were getting a little bit confused, some of those that were hypercritically approaching that finding that came out last week. And by the way, it was in the American Heart Association annual conference. And what they showed was that people who eat within a short window of time, it's called time-restricted eating, which is a form of intermittent fasting, but it's something where people do for 4, 6, or 8 hours, where they jam all of their calories in to a condensed time period. And what the study showed was that they had a 91% increase in disease risk mortality. And so it was showing really unhealthy. And guess what? There was more than 20,000 study participants in this study. Now, some were arguing, oh, it hasn't been peer reviewed yet. Well, actually, it was. It was a peer reviewed abstract. Now, it's not a peer reviewed manuscript journal publication, but it will be. Trust me. The data was that credible and valid. And I'm a big supporter of the findings because I've held for a very long time, and actually since the history of humans, we know that when we jam a lot of our calorie intake within a short window of time in something called time-restricted eating, whether it's 4, 6, or 8 hours, that's overloading our body more than what it can handle. And so it's not an ideal eating pattern. So I do not recommend time-restricted eating for anybody. And those findings that were presented at the annual conference of the American Heart Association last week, showing a 91% increase in disease risk, is real. And we have to be cautious of that. So protein pacing is the antithesis of that model. We know that it's not the optimal to eat within a shorter window of time. We've known that for a very long time. Why it keeps on reinventing itself is kind of bizarre to me. We know that we need to spread things out, but we also need to intermittently undergo a nutritional fast. And that's a 24 or 48-hour period of very low calorie intake. And so that's what we use in our model. That's what Isagenix has been using for 21.5 years. So don't confuse time-restricted eating of this condensed eating window with nutritional fasting. It's not. They're on two totally opposite ends of the spectrum, because time-restricted eating you're doing every day. Protein pacing you're doing the majority of the days of the week, and then nutritional fasting when you need to for either 1 or 2 days. So big, massive difference between those two things. And so that finding will hold the test of time that they showed last week at the American Heart Association. Don't be fooled by those that are trying to interpret it in the wrong way. So I'm going to present data, as Rhonda said, from 2 different studies. This was the original Skidmore study that I conducted now, 9 years ago. It was over a 12-week time period with a 1-year follow-up. But I'm going to save the 1-year follow-up for after I present this data, and then the follow-up study that I did that was for 8 weeks. So I'm showing you the shorter term findings right now. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm going to show the 12-week from 9 years ago, and then the 8-week that we just conducted soon after the pandemic actually started. So these people were housed, at home. Many people were suffering from lots of adverse effects from the shutdown of the world. And weight gain was a real issue for a lot of people. And I want to show you some of our data that occurred exactly at the time that the shutdown of COVID occurred with everyone. That was the 8-week study. So here was the 12 weeks. And this is the body composition changes. And this was what occurred in both men and women. And so I want you to just know that the women actually had some of the most favorable changes in their health status over the 12 weeks. And that's what we were interested in comparing, men versus women. So this was a monumental, groundbreaking study. So we showed that they had massive losses of body weight. This 11.5 kilograms amount, that's what we use for scientific publications, was about 24.5 pounds. Fat mass was the majority of the weight they were losing, so they lost a little bit of water mass, and then they did lose just a little bit, although they maintained their water. It was not significant. But the other thing that happened was this proportional increase in their lean body mass. Now that's very, very important, because of the total weight that was lost, nearly all of it was their fat mass, and as a result, their proportion of their lean body mass went up 9%. So just to give you a perspective, when people go on some of the medicated weight loss using the GLP-1 agonists, they will have a massive drop in body weight, but 40% of that weight loss will be their lean body mass. 40%, and in some cases even higher. So that's a real challenge for people that are on those GLP-1s. Here's the data from the 8-week study that was, again, conducted during the pandemic. What we showed in these people when they were following the protein pacing And the nutritional fasting compared to a heart-healthy Mediterranean diet, both groups had a favorable, somewhat favorable increase in their lean body mass percentage. Here you see the heart-healthy, that's what the HH and the MED stands for. They had a 3% increase. Well, look at this. More than double the percentage or proportion of their lean body mass was demonstrated in the protein pacing nutritional fasting group. So those were the groups that were following, of course, the Isagenix shake days and the cleanse days. That's what I'm referring to when I refer to the protein pacing nutritional fasting. I'm referring to the Isagenix shake days and the cleanse days. I just, use my model of protocol that I incorporated. So they had a doubling of the lean body mass proportion during that weight loss time period. So now I'm going to shift and show you what we did in that 12-week study. So this was the pre-pandemic. It was done back in 2014 and 15. It was a 12-week study. I showed you the results of the men and women combined together. At the end of the 12 weeks, what I decided to do, and Isagenix agreed to it, so that was a huge risk on their part. I said, I want to follow them for a year because I wanted to demonstrate whether or not successful weight loss could be classified. Because in the National Weight Registry, they use in a 1-year time period, if the individuals can maintain a 10% weight loss from their initial starting weight, that can be determined as successful weight loss. And in our study participants, they exceeded a 10% weight loss after the first 12 weeks. So that data that I just showed you of the 12 weeks, where they lost that 24, 25 pounds, that was more than 10% of their initial weight. So they achieved successful weight loss, but it was only after 12 weeks. So I went back to Isagenix and I said, hey, can I extend this for another 52 weeks? I was thinking they were going to laugh at me. They said, absolutely. We want to see how well our products can hold up to a leading recommended intervention, nutritional intervention, in this case, the heart healthy Mediterranean, after a year. So that's the data I'm going to show you right now. You ready? I hope you're buckled up because this is awesome. I know some of you have seen this. So looking at just this graph on the left, I don't want to show you what's going on the right yet. I'm going to show that to you in a second. So here's what occurred. So the dotted line is what happened during the first 12 weeks. I just showed you that data. They had a massive drop. It was a little bit over 10%. It was like 11.5% of their initial starting body weight. But here's what was so cool. After the group of 40 people lost all that weight, and by the way, all of them stayed in the study, which was remarkable. We took half of them and we said, half of you, we want you to go on the heart healthy. And I felt really good about that because at the time I was an advisory board member of the American Heart Association. So I said, you're going to follow something that I actually believe in. And that's the solid line that you see here. Now, the dotted line is the group that was continuing. We had the other half continue on with the protein pacing nutritional fasting. So they were following the Isagenix system. Look at this. They were able to maintain their weight loss of 10% at the end of a year. That's unbelievable. I know you guys are all clapping wildly right now. I can't hear you, but you should be because we were able to demonstrate after a 1 year of follow-up following the protein pacing nutritional fasting using the Isagenix system of the shakes and the cleanse days, they were able to, after 1 year, maintain that more than 10% of weight loss of their initial starting point. They achieved successful weight loss. That's incredible. The heart healthy group that we had transition after they had lost that weight, the other half, they actually started to rebound again. Now, this rebound is very interesting because if you look over here on the right, you can see that this is what we have occurring when people go on the GLP-1 agonists. In this case, it was the semaglutide, the Ozempic. So they lose a lot of weight for sure. That's what this darker line is showing right here. But as soon as they stop, the weight comes on very, very quickly. And it's very similar to what happened in our study with the group that was following the heart healthy diet. We call that recidivism or rebound. So they had a rebound in that weight that was lost. And unfortunately, a lot of that weight that was lost in the semaglutide GLP study, that's this one over here on the right, was up to 40% of their lean body mass. And as you saw with our data, we had a much different picture. And here it is right here. We can see that the lean body mass percentage continues to increase even after the 1 year follow-up. So even though they maintain their body weight, they actually were having a transition of their body composition. They were actually starting to gain back some significant lean body mass, even during the time that they were maintaining that, really healthy weight loss that they had achieved earlier. Whereas the heart healthy group was continuing to lose lean body mass over the course of that 1 year follow-up. That's unfortunate. The same picture holds true for the abdominal fat mass. That was continuing to decrease in the protein pacing nutritional fasting group, and it was continuing, unfortunately, the abdominal fat to increase in the heart healthy group. So those are some of the changes that occurred. I'm going to stop there just because I know we're a little bit short on time, but those findings alone that I just showed you are massive. They were groundbreaking, and the fact that we were able to replicate it in the 8-week study during the actual pandemic, the total lockdown, where people were gaining, just massive amounts of weight. We were actually in our little corner of the world showing that people following the protein pacing nutritional fasting could have a remarkable improvement in their health.
That is really, really phenomenal news. I know that for all the health practitioners that are listening tonight, to be able to help their patients achieve results quicker, easier, and be able to maintain those results. That is the key that we want to focus in on, because, it's one thing to, be restricted for a little bit and get healthier, quickly or over a period of time and lose some healthy fat loss, but it's another thing to really be able to maintain that. Those numbers are absolutely remarkable. Some of the other things that you found in this study, Dr. Paul, I think were that the Isagenix group, I have it right here, like that they found it was easier, right? It was easier.
Yeah, they did. Yep.
And they had 40% greater reduction in the desire to eat.
They did. Yeah, that was a remarkable finding, because we cut their calorie intake from what they started in the study nearly in half. So they were eating half the number of calories, but they were reporting, the Isagenix group, they were reporting feeling more satisfied. And that's that doesn't happen all the time. And so, we talk about what the GLP-1 agonists do, right? It suppresses appetite. Unfortunately, it suppresses healthy, nutritious food intake, because you have just an absence of hunger. And that's where the loss of lean body mass occurs. But in the Isagenix, not only did they feel less hungry, but they were still optimizing their nutrition. They were still, wanting to continue to consume the healthy protein in the shakes and the other products.
Yes, and it's something that is not super restrictive. I mean, the maintenance mode here that you jumped into, for the last portion of this study, I believe that was done with, was that done with 1 shake a day?
We did. We allowed them to go down. They had the choice. They could do 1 or 2. So we had a mix, and we report on that. But some of them were only doing 1, some were doing 2. And then in terms of the nutritional fasting, the cleanse days, they were doing those again once or twice a month. So they dropped those way down. So you're exactly right. This was not a restrictive, really difficult. It was quite easy. And they thoroughly loved it. And by the way, at the end of the 1 year, many of them have continued on, and I'm reporting on some of that data from one of our case study participants who actually lost 120 pounds in 100 days, and has continued to do remarkably well. Now even he was in the 8-week study, and he's been holding steady with it. So it's incredible. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, that is certainly a solution. I'm sure that many, many health practitioners are looking forward to sharing with their patients, their clients. And some important information I want to finish with tonight. And, we'll be doing more interviews with you, Dr. Paul. We are grateful for your work. I know that you are absolutely committed to your work and ongoing work and your research. And so any of the guests that are hearing this tonight or listening to the recording, please get back to the person who invited you to this incredible interview with Dr. Paul. We have all of the clinical studies we can send over to you. And, I like to tell the health practitioners, your clients are going to hear hear about these products. They're going to. I mean, gosh, the study is one of the top 10% being downloaded, right? So your clients and your colleagues are going to be hearing about this, and they're going to want these products, and they're definitely going to go get them somewhere else if they don't get them from you, right? So you don't have to keep any inventory, and the products get shipped directly to your patients. And of course, this creates another stream of income that wraps around your brick and mortar business, which of course, I imagine everyone could use. And, our mission here is, to continue to give people the resources to have optimization. I am 22 years on Isagenix, Dr. Paul. I am 56 years old. I recently gained 7 pounds of lean muscle following your protein pacing,
Awesome.
nutritionally supported intermittent fasting protocol last year. So at 56 years old, I gained, 7 pounds of lean muscle. And I know I'm
Love
going to
it.
be able to stay, in that body optimization for the rest of my life. So
For
thank you
sure.
for doing all of your research. And we will definitely have you back again tonight. I know you're a super busy man, and we just
Oh,
appreciate you. And we can't wait to spend more time with you.
this was a real treat. We have lots more. We only did a little tip of the iceberg. But thank you all so much. That was a real treat, Rhonda. Thank you.
I appreciate you. We'll be seeing you soon at some of our events. Have a great
Bye-bye.
evening, everyone. Good night.